name is Trey. What is your
My name is Connie Foley.
and what was your job?
I was a student affairs administrator at a variety of colleges and universities.
The ghost stories of Fenton, are they true or fiction?
It depends upon who you ask. There are a number of them. There's a house on West Shiawassee where they say that somebody's been there. They also say that it possibly has the Underground Railroad there. But it's so hard to tell. There's a house down on the way out of town on North Leroy that is now, I think it's a realty or something like that, but it's a big old gray brick house. And people have said that there's a ghost there. And I've never seen one, but I've heard other people have. So who knows?
The statues around Fenton, are any of them based off of the ghost stories of Fenton?
The only one that is somewhat based off the ghost stories of Fenton. In front of the community center, there's a statue of 4 men playing cards. And the story is that that's how Fenton got its name, because the city of Fenton was founded by a man named Clark Dibble, and we were called Dibbleville. And then William Fenton and Robert Leroy came to Fenton, and they actually bought the town from Dibble, and they wanted to name it. And so the story goes that they had a card game, and whoever won the card game got to have the city named after him. And of course, Fenton won the card game, which is how at that time we became Fentonville. And Robert Leroy came in second, so they named the main business street. And then Rockwell was able to name what was the main residential street. And if you go to Rockwell Street, which is on this side of town, basically, you'll find a lot of big old houses where people lived. And then they named a lot of the streets after mothers and daughters and sisters. So we have Adelaide and Elizabeth and Ellen.
Has there ever been reported like a ghost in the library? Library here?
Well, this library, did you know this library used to be a post office? And if you look at the outside of the library, it says post office on it. And in fact, do you know where the historical museum is?
No.
Well, it's got a roof that goes like this, and it's kind of in the center of town, a few blocks away in the Dibbleville area. That used to be the library, and it was given to the city when A.J. Phillips, that was his office. He was a businessman here. And he died in 1904 and left it to the city to be a library. And so this building didn't become the library. This actually was built in the 1930s period. And it became a library in 1989. So I'm going to say that I don't think there's any ghosts here. If we go back to the museum, which was the library, there have been all sorts of discussions about people seeing someone in the window. And A.J. Phillips, who owned it, had a granddaughter who died when she was 7 years old. And some people have thought they have seen her peeking out of the window. So I'd say if any place was haunted, it would be the museum.
What are like the main places stories are like considered haunted? Like what certain places?
Well, like I say, I know a few houses. The house that's down West Shiawassee, where they thought it's across the street from the Big Blue Wellness Center. That one's believed to be haunted.
Hey, I'm Lucas, and we're interviewing Brenda Hassey.
Yes, good enough. I hear everything.
Okay. When was the last time there was a ghost story in Fenton?
Well, there is always a ghost that haunts Fenton's open book. Most recently, I was standing at the west window, and I was talking to the store owner, and the phone rang, and she left. I was there by myself, and I heard this big clap on the floor, and I looked down, and the book Haunted Detroit was by my foot, and that was maybe a couple months ago.
Are all the ghost stories in the Fenton Hotel true?
As far as I know, it's a legend that goes on as far as a man floating in the second-story window, because there used to be a double-decker porch, so they were thinking he was standing on the porch that was no longer there. There's a cold spot in the third stall of the women's bathroom where supposedly someone killed themselves. There's a table 32 that apparition, a man in a top hat will appear and he will order a drink, and then when the waitress goes to bring it, he's not there anymore, and the drink gets added to the person's bill.
When was the Fenton Hotel built?
In the 1860s. That's built in the 1860s. Called the Vermont House at first.
Have you experienced a ghost story hand in hand, like a popular, well-known ghost story?
I don't know if it's popular or well known. My house was haunted for a while, and I actually had ghost adventurers come in and go through my house, and they caught apparitions in it, things like that. And I have experienced the hauntings in the bookstore in town.
How have the ghost stories affected and shaped the Fenton Hotel?
Well, I think it's legendary. It's known as one of the most haunted hotel/restaurants in Michigan. It dates back a long ways with many, many different hauntings. There's also, I think, one of the corner rooms upstairs is where the janitor maintenance man used to live, and as you're dining in downstairs, you can hear his footsteps and stuff upstairs walking around.
How many ghost stories are in the Fenton Hotel?
I could think of at least 6 or 7. There's a lady in the bathroom, the janitor, maintenance man, the guy at the table that orders a drink. There's also been incidences of glasses falling off, or getting pushed off the shelves. One person eating there said that they saw a ghost hugging one of the barmaids, and she couldn't even feel it happening. And then there's a story of like a voice being over like a PA system that nobody even was talking on. So that's what, 6 or 7.
Has anybody been physically affected by the ghost stories in Fenton?
Well, I know I've been touched, sometimes harassed. I'm sure other people have heard their names called. I know when I did a signing at the bookstore, all my books were knocked down that I had set up on the table.
What was the first ghost story of Fenton?
Oh, I don't know. That might have to go back a ways because Fenton dates back to 1834. So a lot of people believe that, the people that once lived in our city, when they die, their energy kind of stays here. So it could be some of the original settlers, even some of the Indians that used to live here.
What's the scariest ghost story you've ever heard?
I don't know if I've really heard a scary one in Fenton. I think they just mostly are trying to get our attention to let us know that they're still here. This book actually entails a lot of the hauntings that are in Fenton, but this building itself, many people know it as the Fenton Museum, but it used to be A.J. Phillips's personal office, where Yesterday's Treasures is, which is an antique shop. I do know that Mrs. Phillips is seen in there from time to time in the front window closest to the post office, like crying with a handkerchief. In the front window, the reason this is glowing, in the front window up here, he had a granddaughter by the name of Marjorie, who passed away when she was 7 years old, and she can sometimes be seen in that window in a white dress with a teddy bear clutched in her hand.
The firehouse is haunted?
Fenton Fire Hall. Yeah, it's where the restaurant is. A lot of the waitresses complain of their coffee pots always breaking, and sometimes if you're in the bathroom by yourself, all of a sudden the light will go off. Somebody will shut it off, and you're in there by yourself in the dark.
How many books have you written about horror stories?
I don't write a lot of horror. These are the 2 haunted books that I have. I was a writer for the Fenton Ghost Walk when we had it here, so I have written all the scripts for the actors to perform. And then my friend wanted me to write one about Haunted Fenton.
Can you tell us more about the haunted tours of Fenton?
The Haunted Tours of Fenton were with the Fenton Ghost Walk and the Fenton Village Players actually performed. So basically we did it for 4 years. There was usually 6 to 7 stops per year. And so along with Connie, who was here as well, her and I would do a lot of research, and we'd figure out what people the actors wanted to play, and I'd write down all the facts about them and write a script for them to perform. So basically inside is, I'll do it this way, like all pictures of all the different years that we were doing this. And then I have the scripts that the actors actually performed. And then I was one of the tour guides, so what we would do at the very end is a lot of the Halloween jokes and stuff we would tell along the way when there was kind of a dead spot.
How long does it take you to write each book?
Well, it depends on the length.
What's your favorite ghost story of Fenton?
I think the lady at the Fenton Hotel, she fell in love with the guy, and she was supposed to meet him at the depot. And he didn't show up, so she went back into the hotel and she hung herself in the third stall of the women's bathroom. And women go in there now, and they say that sometimes they see an apparition, other times they feel it's very cold.
Hi, who are you?
I'm Joe Schaefer, your father.
I'm Claire. What are some ghost stories about the Fenton Hotel that you know?
So there's several, and I'll tell a couple of them, 2, maybe 3, if I can think of a third. But one night after work, when all of us were sitting there were 3 people left in the whole building. I had locked all the doors, made sure all the cooks were gone out of the kitchen, and there was just me and 2 other servers. And we were sitting down talking and having a drink after work when all of a sudden in the back, I heard the radio turn on in the kitchen, super loud, like louder than it ever is. And I jumped up and ran back there. When I ran back there, there's a big, heavy door that goes from the dining room to the kitchen. It's actually replaced now. It's much later, but it was a really thick, like old wooden door. And when I ran back there, that door was just swinging back and forth, like somebody had just shoved it and ran through it. And so I ran through it trying to catch whoever it was and ran to the back door. And the back door was locked and there was nobody there, and the radio was cranked full blast and the entire place was empty. So there was no reason for any of that to happen or anybody in there. Now, I had another guy that used to come in there all the time, and he had worked there years ago. His name was Bobby Clark. And Bobby was telling me a story that they used to have one of the old-fashioned cash registers back behind the bar. And he was the manager. And he had closed up for the night and gone upstairs, because upstairs is where the office is. And he was counting the money and stuff like that. And everything was normal. And the place was, all locked up. It was just him and I think another person. And they were both upstairs. And after they were done, when they came down, they found the old cash register. And those old cash registers weigh a ton. They were like super heavy. And he found it, somebody had lifted it up, taken it out from behind the bar and just set it down on the floor, in the middle of the floor. Like, this was in the middle of the night on a random weeknight. Nobody was in the place. So I was sitting there one day in the middle of the afternoon. It wasn't even night out. And I had like 3 people sitting at the bar. And I was talking to them, and I had just gotten one of them a glass of water. I set the glass of water down in front of her. And as we're standing there talking, the glass of water split completely in half. Like the glass divided in 2, broke in half and fell. And we're sitting there and kind of like, laughing about it, because sometimes stuff like that happens. If the glass is really hot and you put ice in it, the glass will break or something like that. So we were kind of laughing about it. It was just weird how it split completely in 2. Well, as we're laughing about it, I had an empty wine glass that was sitting on the mug chiller. And that bar is so old, everything tilts like this way. So the wine glass was sitting on the mug chiller like this. And as we're laughing and talking about the glass that just broke, the wine glass just started doing this. Went uphill, nobody touched it, all the way to the edge until it hit the lip and then fell over and smashed on the floor.
Do you actually believe in ghosts?
I do not actually believe in ghosts. That being said, I've had a lot of inexplicable things happen to me there that I don't have a logical explanation for. But do I think it's a ghost? I don't know. But there's hundreds of people that do, that believe for a fact that there are ghosts. I had one Sunday I was working, and the bartender that was on duty that day, she was in that room getting liquor out, and she turned around, and she had a couple bottles of either booze or wine in her hand, and she turned around, and there was a guy standing in the door in like an old black suit with like an old black top hat on, and it freaked her out so bad she literally dropped the bottles, broke them, and ran through the guy.